My husband divorced me for a gold digger with a Lamborghini, calling me a broke failure in front of everyone. 6 months later, he found out I owned the company that built her car, the mall where she shops, and the apartment building where they live. His face was priceless. If you want to see the most satisfying revenge story, where karma hits harder than a freight train, you better buckle up. Hit subscribe right now because what happens next will leave your jaw on the floor. This man had no idea what was coming. You know they say love is blind. But greed has 20/20 vision. And my ex-husband Derek had the greediest eyes I've ever seen. I just didn't know it until it was too late. Or maybe I should say until it was too late for him. Let me take you back to the beginning. 4 years ago, I married Derek, thinking I'd found my forever. We met at a coffee shop where I was working on my laptop, managing what he thought were just small business deals. He was charming, confident, and had this way of making me laugh even on my worst days. Derek ran a small marketing consultancy, and honestly, he seemed like a good man trying to build something meaningful. What Derek didn't know was that while he was struggling to land $5,000 contracts, I was quietly building an empire. You see, I come from nothing. Absolutely nothing. My mama cleaned offices at night and worked at a grocery store during the day just to keep food on our table. I learned early that money talks, but wealth whispers. And I wanted to whisper so quietly that nobody would ever see me coming. I started with one small investment property when I was 19, then 2. Then I moved into tech startups, manufacturing, real estate development. By the time I married Derek, I owned a portfolio worth over $2 billion. But I lived like I made $30,000 a year because that's what felt safe. That's what felt normal. Derek never questioned why I always seemed to know people, why doors opened for me, why my part-time consulting work somehow always paid our bills when his business got tight. He was so focused on his own struggles that he never really looked at me, really looked. The first crack in our marriage happened about 6 months ago. Derek's business was failing hard. He'd lost 3 major clients and the stress was eating him alive. I watched this man I loved spiral into someone I barely recognized. He started making comments about our life, our apartment, our car, little digs about how we weren't living up to our potential, how other couples our age were doing better. I offered to help him financially more than once, but Derek's pride wouldn't let him accept what he saw as handouts from his wife's little side hustle. If he only knew that my little side hustle could have bought his entire industry. Then she showed up. Vanessa. I'll never forget the first time I heard her name. Derek came home late one night and when I asked where he'd been, he said he'd been networking at some business event. But there was something different about how he said it. Something in his eyes that made my stomach drop. Met some interesting people tonight, he said, not looking at me. There was this woman there, Vanessa. She runs her own luxury lifestyle brand. Really successful, really sophisticated. The way he said sophisticated made me feel like I'd been slapped, like everything I wasn't enough. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa's name started coming up more and more. How she drove a Lamborghini. How she lived in a penthouse downtown. How she traveled to Dubai and Milan for business. Derek would tell me these things with this look in his eyes like he was seeing something he wanted, something he deserved. I started noticing changes in him. He'd come home later and later. He'd shower as soon as he walked in the door. He started talking about image, about success, about how perception was everything in business, how maybe he needed to upgrade his lifestyle to attract better clients. The night I found out about the affair, Derek wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. His phone buzzed on the counter while he was in the shower, and Vanessa's name lit up the screen with a message that made everything crystal clear. Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Wear that suit I bought you. My hands were shaking as I read those words. Not from anger, but from heartbreak. This man I'd loved, I'd supported, I'd built a life with was living a double life with someone else's money. Because there was no way Derek could afford the kind of lifestyle Vanessa was living, which meant she was either supporting him or he was going into debt trying to keep up with her. When Derek came out of the bathroom, I was sitting on our bed with his phone in my hands. How long? I asked quietly. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in his face I'd never seen before. Relief, like he was glad he didn't have to pretend anymore. 3 months, he said. And Carla, I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this. Like what? I whispered. Like I'm settling. Like I'm not living up to my potential. Vanessa sees what I could be, what I should be. She believes in the life I want to build. I felt something break inside my chest, and I don't. Derek sat down on the edge of the bed, not looking at me. You're a good woman, Carla, but you're comfortable with this. This small life, this basic existence. I need more. I deserve more. Those words hit me like bullets. Basic existence, small life. This man had no idea that I could have given him any life he wanted, any dream he could have imagined. But he'd never bothered to ask. He'd never bothered to really know me. I want a divorce, Derek said finally. I'm going to marry Vanessa. She gets me in ways you never could. I sat there for a long time after he left the room, staring at the wall. Part of me wanted to tell him everything right then and there, show him my bank statements, my property deeds, my investment portfolios, watch his face change when he realized what he was walking away from. But then I realized something that changed everything. This wasn't about money. This was about who Derek really was when he thought nobody was watching. And what I saw wasn't someone I wanted to save. It was someone who needed to learn a lesson that only life could teach him. So, I let him go. The divorce was quick and clean. Derek was so eager to start his new life that he barely fought for anything. He took his clothes, his car, and his dreams of luxury. I kept everything else, which in his mind wasn't much. Our apartment, our modest savings account, our simple furniture. What he didn't know was that the apartment building we lived in, I owned it, and 12 others just like it. Within a month, Derek and Vanessa were married in some elaborate ceremony that I heard about through mutual friends. The pictures on social media looked like something out of a magazine. Designer everything, expensive flowers, a reception at the most exclusive venue in the city. I wondered how Derek was paying for it all. But I didn't wonder for long because that's when the real show started. Derek began living like a man possessed. Designer suits, expensive dinners, luxury vacations. His social media became a highlight reel of wealth and success that I knew his business couldn't support. Vanessa's posts were even more extravagant. Private jets, shopping sprees, jewelry that cost more than most people's houses. I watched from afar as Derek transformed himself into someone I didn't recognize. Gone was the humble man who used to worry about spending $50 on a nice dinner. This new Derek was all about image, all about showing the world that he'd made it. But I knew the truth. I knew his business was still struggling because I kept track of everything in my industry. I knew he was borrowing money, maxing out credit cards, taking out loans against his future. Derek was living a lie. And it was only a matter of time before that lie caught up with him. The funny thing was, while Derek was busy playing pretend billionaire, I was actually living like one for the first time in years. Not flashy, not obvious, but comfortable in my own skin. I bought a beautiful house in the hills. Nothing too extravagant, but perfect for me. I started traveling, started saying yes to invitations I'd turned down for years. I began showing my face at industry events, charity galas, business conferences. It felt good to stop hiding. 6 months after our divorce, I got invited to speak at the annual Business Excellence Awards. It's the biggest corporate event in the city where they honor the most successful companies and entrepreneurs. I'd been nominated for Businesswoman of the Year, and for the first time I decided to accept publicly. The night of the event, I wore a simple black dress that cost more than Derek's monthly rent, but you'd never know it to look at it. Elegance doesn't have to scream. I walked into that ballroom with my head held high, ready to finally step into the light, and that's when I saw them. Derek and Vanessa were at a table near the back, and I could tell immediately that they were out of their depth. Derek was wearing a suit that didn't quite fit right, the kind you get when you're trying to look expensive on a budget. Vanessa was covered in jewelry, but it was all flash and no substance. They looked like people trying very hard to convince everyone they belonged there. Derek spotted me first, and I watched his face go through about 6 different emotions. Surprise, confusion, and something that looked almost like fear. I smiled and gave him a little wave, like we were old friends bumping into each other at the grocery store. But the real moment came when they announced the Business Excellence Award winners. And this year's Businesswoman of the Year, with a portfolio spanning real estate, technology, and manufacturing, with companies valued at over $2 billion. Carla Johnson, CEO and founder of Johnson Enterprises. The applause was thunderous as I walked to the stage, but all I could hear was the silence at Derek's table. I gave my acceptance speech about perseverance, about building from nothing, about staying true to yourself even when others can't see your worth. When I looked out at the audience, Derek's face was white as a sheet. Vanessa was staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. I could practically see the gears turning in Derek's head as he connected the dots. All those small business deals I'd worked on. All those times I'd seemed to know exactly the right people. All those moments when money appeared just when we needed it. After my speech, I was surrounded by congratulations and networking opportunities. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw Derek and Vanessa having what looked like a very intense conversation. Her hands were flying. His head was in his hands. The fairy tale was cracking. I was talking to a group of investors when Derek appeared at my elbow. "Carla," he said, and his voice was shaky. "Can we talk?" I excused myself and followed him to a quiet corner of the ballroom. Vanessa stayed at the table, looking like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "You own Johnson Enterprises," Derek said. It wasn't a question. "I do. All this time, you were." "I was exactly who I've always been, Derek. You just never bothered to really look." He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him processing everything. Every connection I'd helped him make without taking credit. Every time I'd quietly paid a bill when he was short. Every opportunity that had come his way through my network, though he'd never known it. "My God, Carla, do you know what I've done? Do you know what I threw away?" "You threw away a marriage," I said calmly. "You threw away love. You threw away partnership. You didn't throw away money, Derek, because you never knew I had it. But we could have what? Been happy with what we had. Been grateful for what we built together. You didn't want that life. Remember, you wanted more. You wanted better. You wanted someone who got your vision." Derek's eyes were filling with tears. And for a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "I made a mistake. Carla, the biggest mistake of my life. Is there any way we could?" "No," I said simply. "There isn't. But I love you. I've always loved you. I just got confused. I got caught up in you, got caught up in greed. You got caught up in image. You got caught up in thinking that I wasn't enough for you. And Derek, that says everything about who you are and nothing about who I am." I could see Vanessa watching us from across the room, and I knew their conversation later that night wouldn't go well. When someone marries you for money and status and then finds out you don't actually have either, well, that's not a love story. That's a business transaction gone wrong. I was right. Within 2 weeks, Derek was calling me, begging me to take him back. Apparently, Vanessa had filed for divorce the day after the awards ceremony. She'd also cleaned out their joint bank account and moved out of their luxury apartment, leaving Derek with bills he couldn't pay and debts he couldn't manage. "She's gone, Carla. She left me with nothing." "No, Derek. She left you with exactly what you brought to the relationship. The problem is that wasn't much. Please," he begged. "I know I was wrong. I know I was stupid, but we had something real once. We could have it again." I looked at this man who'd once been my husband, who'd once been my partner, who'd once been someone I'd thought I'd grow old with. And all I felt was peace. "Derek, what we had was real, but it was real for me, not for you. For you, it was something to settle for until something better came along. And that's not love. That's not partnership. That's just convenience." "But I see you now," he said desperately. "I see who you really are. You see my bank account, Derek? That's not the same thing. The last time I saw Derek, he was standing outside my office building looking lost and broken. I felt bad for him. Honestly, not bad enough to take him back, but bad enough to hope he'd learn something from all this. Because here's what Derek never understood. I didn't hide my wealth because I was ashamed of it. I hid it because I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I have. I wanted to build something real with someone who saw value in me beyond my net worth. I thought Derek was that person. But I was wrong. The irony is if Derek had just loved me for me, he would have had access to everything he thought he wanted, the luxury, the status, the opportunities. But he wanted those things more than he wanted me. And in the end, that cost him everything. These days, I don't hide who I am anymore. I've learned that the right person will love you whether you have $10 or 10 billion. And the wrong person will leave you for someone else, whether you're broke or wealthy. Derek taught me that lesson in the most painful way possible. Now, looking back, I'm actually grateful for everything that happened. Because for the first time in my life, I'm completely free to be myself. Free to live unapologetically. Free to use my success to uplift others, to build something meaningful, to create real impact instead of shrinking to fit someone else's comfort zone. And Derek. Last I heard, he's back to running his small marketing consultancy, humbled, alone, trying to piece together a life he single-handedly tore apart. Still chasing that illusion. Still reaching for fool's gold. Sometimes I wonder if he ever thinks about what could have been. If it ever crosses his mind that while he was out searching for someone who could give him the world, he was already married to a woman who owned hers. But that's not my lesson to teach. That's his to learn. Here's the thing about karma. It doesn't need your help. It doesn't need your anger, your revenge, or your late-night speeches in the shower. It just needs time, patience, and the quiet confidence of knowing that life balances its own scales. Derek got the dream girl. The Lamborghini. The flashy lifestyle he thought he wanted. What he didn't realize. Gold diggers don't stick around when the gold runs out. As for me, I got something far better. I got my truth. I got my freedom. And I got the peace that comes from never compromising who I am for someone else's expectations. And honestly, the audacity of some people will never stop shocking me. If you're here for more stories where cheaters get exactly what they deserve, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You already know you don't want to miss what's coming next. And tell me in the comments, what would you have said to Derek when he came crawling back? Trust me, the next story, it's even crazier.